All right, so Errol Spence fan. Well, I don't know if you're a fan or not. You could just be asking a question. Had a question for me, and I wanted to make sure that I got back with you. Okay, so basically, he's talking about. I mean, you guys see the comment right there. Basically, he's saying, how come Terrence Bud Crawford didn't fight Errol Spence when he was his mandatory and opted to fight Jeff Horn? Okay. Now, what you're asking me to do is you're asking me to dip into somebody's mind and tell you why they did something. I could only theorize why somebody has done something because I am not in their head. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to answer your question. But before I do it, I hate to answer a question with another question, but it's only partial. So before I get into that, let me ask you something, right? Because you said he was his mandatory, right? And he opted to fight Jeff Horn instead of fighting Errol Spence. Sprints. Right? Check this out. Okay. Then can you tell me, if that was the case, can you tell me why Errol Spence Jr. requested that Terrence Bud Crawford get a belt before they even fight? Because remember, it was strap season. If somebody is your mandatory and you two could have fought or whatever and whatnot, why would you tell them that they need a belt in order for you to fight if they're your mandatory? I got the article right here in case you got amnesia or something like that. Okay, can you read that? You know what I'm saying? It said all Terrence Crawford had to do was lace his waist with gold. Okay, and there's Errol Spence's words right there. Hopefully he beats Jeff Horn. And when that happens, we can make the fight happen. So if this guy was the mandatory, then why would Errol Spence request that he get a belt before they can even fucking fight? Maybe Terrence Crawford went and fought Jeff Horn, not only because Errol Spence said that that's what the fuck he needed for them to make the fight, but also so he can have some negotiation room at the bidding table. You know what I'm saying? So he can have some negotiation wiggle room when it comes down to make the fight. On top of Errol Spence said that's what he needed for them to fight. So if that was the case, why did Errol Spence say that to Terrence Bud Crawford? Let me ask you, at the time when Terrence Bud Crawford was Errol Spence mandatory, did he have a belt? No. And did Errol Spence request that he get a belt? Yes. So where was he going to get a belt from? Oh, Jeff Horn. But the most important thing in here to see, since we're talking about decisions, you see right there where Errol Spence said, and hopefully he beats him, and when he does, we can make that fight happen. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. When Terrence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence ran into each other, what did Terrence Crawford say? Okay, and I'm going to say it verbatim. Okay, he said, I'll read it all too. You said he needs a belt, all right? And then when I beat Jeff Horn and I get a belt, Keith Thurman want to run over there and you want to run over there, but I got a belt now. What's up? Errol Spence exact words. So what? Sean Porter got a belt too. Now hold on for a second. These are his words. He said after he gets that belt, we can fight. Terrence Bud Crawford said to his face, I got my belt now, so what's up? And I quote, so what? Sean Porter got a belt too. So why don't I just go the easy route and knock him out? That's what you're going to need to explain to me. If somebody's your mandatory, then why are you demanding that they get a belt to fight you? It just should have been, well, We can fight right now because he's my mandatory. Since you guys want to hold people to their decisions and what they say, this literally came out of Errol Spence' mouth. Right after you get the belt, bro, we can make it happen. Right after he got the belt, Terrence Crawford was across the street and Sean Porter got a belt too. Tell me where I'm lying or I'm inaccurate. Hold on, but let's not stop there, okay? Because you guys want to talk about mandatories, right? Last time I checked, Boots Ennis is Errol Spence mandatory. Boots Ennis said, fight me or vacate. Now let me ask you a question. When did Errol Spence become a franchise champion? Is he a franchise champion? No. So how do you get out of fighting your mandatory? Because what y'all trying to do now, y'all trying to pawn Boots off on Terrence Bud Crawford. But one thing about us real boxing fans, we stay about 3 steps ahead of you Errol Spence fanboys. We already knew you was going to do that. We already knew that. But Terrence Crawford is free. No more across the street. He got the belt. And Boots Ennis is his mandatory. Okay? So the question is, how does he opt out of all that, Crawford and Ennis, and goes over there to fight Ugas? You gonna say, well, it's a unification because he got a strap. All right. Jeff Horn had a strap that Errol Spence told Terrence Crawford he needed for them two to fight. Why even say that if that man was your mandatory? I mean, you can't with this shit, bro. Why even say that? Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. If it was a mandatory, it was a mandatory. There ain't no go get no fucking belt. You know what I'm saying? But he went and got his strap and whatever and whatnot. Came back and it was, so what? Now, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't at one point in time they dissed Terrence Crawford's belt and the one he had and said nobody's worried about that belt? But it was strap season. But they say the belt that Terrence Crawford had don't mean shit, don't nobody care about it. Once again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just saying, correct me if I'm wrong. Everything I say is 100% factual. Now tell me how that makes sense. So when you bring up Terrence Crawford being Errol Spence mandatory and why he chose to fight Jeff Horn, you would have to answer, why did Errol Spence demand that he go get a belt before he fought him if he was his fucking mandatory? And since Boots Ennis is your mandatory, why not fight Boots Ennis? Isn't it funny how Ugas couldn't get the unification he wanted until Boots Ennis became Errol Spence mandatory? And when Terrence Bud Crawford is no longer across the street, see, because Ugas been tried to do this. They shut him down and tried to pawn him off on 2 other fighters. Soon as Boots Ennis became Errol Spence mandatory, what happened? All of a sudden, the shit that Ugas was trying to do opened up. Now he's allowed to do it. Isn't that just funny? Don't you think? But to answer your question, I'm going to say this. Obviously, Terrence Bud Crawford told him that he needed a belt to fight him in the fucking first place. Okay? Because it was strap season. So he went to go get a strap, and then he came right back. Did exactly what he asked. The same thing Lomachenko asked Teofimo Lopez to do. Go get a strap, then we'll fight. Okay? So even more than that, how come he didn't fight him after he beat Jeff Horn and got that strap? Why the fight didn't happen then is the real question you should be asking. See, because whatever you trying to commit, whatever you trying to say that Terrence Crawford did, Errol Spence is guilty 10 times over for doing it. Those are just facts. Okay? Now I answered your question. Now you're going to have to answer mine.